Hello and welcome to Flagstaff TV. Today we are joined by Brad George, CEO of Orosur Mining. Brad, thank you so much for joining us today.
Catherine, always a pleasure.
Thank you. Now, you've just announced that you are about to start work to move the Pepas deposit towards a mineral resource estimate. Could you perhaps expand on exactly what this means technically and why this decision has been taken?
Look, please do. So in the mining space, the word resource is a protected term. So we as a public company on the London and Toronto exchanges, we can't talk about the size of a deposit, tonnes, grade, ounces, unless it's been defined as a resource according to the various technical standards in Canada 4101 in Australia JORC. So a resource is essentially us being able to tell the market, do we have a deposit of a certain size, and that it's more like it's likely to be economic at some time in the future. So a resource is a formal milestone that we feel important that it is to reach. The question of why, well, we thought it was ready to do so. I guess I would point out that the current gold price environment is a bit different than we've seen in the past. So traditionally, we might just drill for a few years, understand the size of the deposit, and then move to resource at some point in a couple of years' time. But the nature of what we're seeing at Pepas, very high grade, very thick at surface, near a main road, near existing mines that may have spare capacity, in the context of this crazy gold price, suggests to us that Pepas, albeit very early stage and still quite small, has potentially crossed the threshold of being a quite attractive mining proposition. We're looking at back of the fag packets of price or profit margins of over $2,000 an ounce. So we think Pepas is a particularly special little thing in the right location at the right time, that we felt that pulling the trigger and moving to resource early is worthwhile in this price environment. And what that then allows us to do, it then allows us to one, trigger the permitting process, and then begin all the other studies that are required, the metallurgy, the design, the mining economics, and be able to communicate that to the market. So moving to resource for us is a fairly major milestone in being able to then progress Pepas toward being an operation.
And what is the process to achieve this, and how long do you think it will take, Brad?
Well, there's two things. One is drilling. You need to have enough drilling information to give the geological team that do the resource confidence that it's real. So there's infilling the drilling to a certain spacing. We think that we need about, or probably less than 2,000 meters more drilling to do. That's of course subject to results, and maybe more, maybe less. And that we think will take us to November this year. So it's a quite defined amount of time. But we also need to do a resource, an understanding geologically of what it is. We need to interpolate between drill holes. So a resource requires a geological model to be able to understand exactly what it is, why it is there, and how it behaves. That's underway now. We have a consultant on site working with our team for the last week and a half, and another week or so to go. And one of the outputs of that is it will give us the geological model to input to the resource process. So that'll be done, the drilling's underway. So we expect this all to be done and ready to model up for the end of the year.
And then after this, what is the next step?
Well, having a resource is sort of the beginning of the process. Once we say we've got X tonnes at X grade, so many ounces, then that allows us to talk to the market and tell the market about the size, the prospects, the economics. So being able to speak is a very important thing. But it then allows us to begin the more advanced processes of metallurgy and mine design, environmental studies. So it's the beginning of a long, hopefully not too long a process, but the resource is the end part of the drilling and the beginning of the next phase. So by having that formal resource step, now we can begin developing it into a mining concept.
We note in your announcement that you state that this is not a major pivot of the whole company, but rather a temporary reassignment of the drill rig. wider exploration will continue as before. Is the company able to manage both streams?
Yes, we are. Now, we think a resource is a good thing, but we're also cognizant that there's sometimes a perception in the market that by having a resource, that's it. That's all you've got. In our case, that is certainly not the case. As I said, traditionally, we might have delayed a couple of years to do a resource, but we think Pepas, as it stands now, is worthy of a resource now. So we're pulled the trigger much earlier. And we've barely scratched the surface in the area. We've drilled a few holes around Pepas. We found smoke. We think there's a lot more to find. So we think that we can quite comfortably run both streams, advance Pepas to a resource while also exploring the wider region for more Pepases, depth extensions, a lot more ounces. We're quite comfortable with our current resourcing of people and finances. We can manage both, largely because Pepas is not at this stage going to be a major labour-intensive operation. Yes, the rig's here for a few months, but once that rig is finished and goes back to exploration, it's then largely consultants. So we're quite comfortable that once we move the rig back, we can run exploration and resource development in parallel without any major disruptions or any major constraint on our current resourcing.
Brad, finally for today, how does this change the complexity of the company in the eyes of the investing community?
It moves you to a new space, into a different level. I think I've said previously that there are thousands of junior mining companies out there, most of whom don't have anything, probably never will. So what we want to do, and I've always said, we want to be in that top 10% where the market can begin to be comfortable that there is something real there and that what that is can move to a profitable mining project. So by having a resource and a robust resource with robust economics, you become one of that very small top of the crop that can say, yes, we've got a real mine project here. And that's one, that just differentiates you, but two, it begins to attract different kinds of investors. So we have many investors that like exploration. We have many that don't. Many investors that won't come in until they're seeing a real project and they want to come into a later stage. So being able to have a resource with robust economics that we can then begin to map out timeframes and milestones not only makes us a slightly more attractive company, reduces the risk, it introduces us to a whole new suite of investors that would not previously have come in. So I guess we are broadening our reach and trying to be all things to all people.
Brad, thank you very much for joining us today.
Always.
And thank you for watching Flagstaff TV.